everyone, I am making a video today of how to make caldo de pollo, which is a Mexican or Hispanic vegetable and chicken soup. The ingredients that we're going to start with today are 2 potatoes. These are washed. I'm going to go ahead and slice them into large pieces. For caldos, all of the pieces of vegetables are sliced like unusually large, I guess is what you would say, in reference to like an American soup or like a traditional soup that you would have. They're like really big pieces, so it's a very hearty soup. So anyways, so there's our 2 potatoes. These are white new potatoes. I have 10 green beans. I've got a white onion. We have 2 corn on the cobs. These are peeled, obviously, and they are sliced into these mini cobs, which I want to say are like 3 inches long. I'll get these extra strings off in a minute. And these are actually going to stay this size, believe it or not. We also have 3 large carrots, which have been peeled, 1 piece of celery, 2 large Roma tomatoes. We also have 2 pieces of, I'm forgetting what this is called, repollo, cabbage, 3 Mexican calabacitas, which are zucchinis. These are just Mexican zucchinis. We also have 2 bay leaves, 3 cloves of garlic, another one of these chile guajillos, which is like the one we used the other day. And I will go ahead and open it up, remove the veins and the seeds as well. Sorry, the girls are having a good time in the background. And then also we have, this is Epazote. It's a Mexican herb. I can't really describe it other than it's different, and there's not really an herb used in American cooking that is the same. So we're gonna go ahead and use that. And then I have a couple of sprigs of cilantro. And then we are also gonna use Nor Suiza, salt, pepper, which I touched in the opposite order, and oregano. And then of course we have the chicken. Those of you who know me know that I just recently stopped being vegan. So like, let me tell you, doing this has taken every ounce of strength inside of me because I was in a hurry in the grocery store and I forgot to ask the butcher to take off the skin, and I had to do it myself, and like literally like I skeeved the whole time. So anyways, this looked really gross right now, but I'm very paranoid about my meat being clean. So it's been sitting with Himalayan pink salt all over it right now, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on the water and like literally use the salt to kind of like exfoliate any gross stuff off of it, and then I'll rinse it very well. And then we're obviously going to need a bunch of water because this is a soup. So I will go ahead and get everything else prepared, get out my pots and pans, and I will be right back. I also forgot to mention, because I was just got way too into telling you how grossed out I am about chicken, that this is 1 whole chicken. It's cut into 8 pieces. So we've got 2 breasts, 2 thighs, 2 legs, and 2 wings. I think that's 8 pieces. I'm not good at math, but that is not what we are here for. I went ahead and I rinsed this off, and as you can see, I didn't bother taking the skin off of the 2 wings, and that is because we won't be eating those. We're kind of bougie when it comes to chicken, so those will probably just be garbage pieces anyways, but I do want to boil them so that way the caldo or the broth becomes more flavorful, and it'll be nice to have a little bit of fat coming off of that skin. So I'm going to go ahead and place these inside of my large olla, or my big pot. This is the same pot that I used to make pozole in, and you are going to need a pretty big pot because this makes a lot of soup. I have added my ingredients for the caldo to the giant pot. So inside, as you can see, we have the chicken pieces, the 2 bay leaves, we have half of the onion, and I actually cut it to keep the stem end intact because this is just going to work like an aromatic, and we're going to pull this out in the end. So this, keeping this end intact, will help the pieces not fall apart so we can remove it. We have 2 whole cloves of garlic also because we're going to remove those as well. And then I added about a tablespoon of the Nor Suiza and a teaspoon of salt. And then I'd say about a half of a teaspoon of black pepper. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill this up with a sufficient amount of water, which to start off I'll probably do maybe about half of the pot, and then you can always add more, but it's kind of hard to take it out, so better to be safe than sorry. Furthermore, on the stove I have 2 Roma tomatoes and some water that are coming to a boil, and if I could find where I put my chile, that would be great. Here it is. I also have my guajillo chile, and if you didn't watch my first video, which you probably didn't because I have 2 videos and I'm not famous or anything, I went ahead and I cleaned it by removing the stem end and the tip end, slicing it open, and then removing the veins that are in here and also all of the seeds. And I'm going to go ahead and slice this into strips and then toss this in the water and go ahead and start rehydrating it, because we're going to make a salsa that we can add back to the broth that further flavors it. So I'll be back in a moment after I have everything going on the stove. Alrighty, so I have everything on the stove. This has been boiling for, I'd want to say, probably about 5 minutes. We want to boil these for about 10 minutes to 15 minutes, or until the tomatoes are soft and the chiles are almost completely rehydrated. As we'd mentioned in here, this is our giant pot with the chicken and the sazones in there, so I'm going to try to get this up to a rolling boil before I start adding the other ingredients. And I'll probably actually let this go about 10 minutes before I start to add the rest of the vegetables, because these are chicken pieces with bones in them, which lend to the flavor of the broth, and they take a long time to cook. So if you put everything in together, you're going to end up with really mushy veggies and or undercooked chicken. I went ahead and I prepped all the veggies. I'm actually going to toss, as soon as it comes to a boil, the celery in. And as you can see, compared to these large pieces, I cut the celery really small. And that's just because I'm a weirdo and I don't really like to take bites of celery. I just think it's gross. So I cut them small so they lend their flavor to the caldo, but I don't get big bites of them. Excuse my voice, I'm really tired today, and that's why I sound probably a little scatterbrained as well. Now, as I, had mentioned before, sorry, we got screaming girls in here, but this is real life. These are huge pieces of vegetables compared to what you'd see in like a soup from Panera or something. I mean, really, really big. This is the size of our carrots. And I actually even cut them on the small side for caldos. Like, I've seen them really, really, really big. But that's what lends to like the kind of hominess and like heartiness of this soup. And I think that's what my husband likes especially about it. I've offered to like try to cut it up and like make it look prettier, but he's like, no, then it wouldn't be a caldo, mommy. And then in a separate bowl over here, I have the zucchini, because we're going to be adding this to the soup last, because it obviously cooks really fast. And then I forgot to mention this cabbage. I don't know why I can't remember the name for cabbage today. This cabbage is cut huge, like literally this whole piece. And there's another one under there. We're not huge cabbage fans, but like that's what you're supposed to do when you serve it, is like put like a whole hunk of cabbage in there. So it's pretty interesting. And as a side note, you're supposed to have another veggie called chayote in this caldo, but they didn't have any at Pete's Market, and the guy was so nice, and he even went and checked the truck, but no dice, so we don't have any chayote here today. The only way I can explain it to those of you who haven't had it is like, I swear it's like a cross between like a Granny Smith apple and a potato. I have no other way to explain it. It sounds gross, but it's good. And then over here I have my green beans. They're cut up like, I don't know, I'd want to say like 1 inch to 2 inches. And I'm actually only putting these in here because I couldn't get chayote. So I'm going to decide at what point I want to add those. So as I bring this to a boil, like I said, after about 10 minutes, I will come back and I will start adding things. And then as soon as this is ready, I will get back on and show you how we make the salsa. Okay, so our tomatoes and our chile is done. So in my NutriBullet, I use this for a lot of things because I don't like to I don't like to wash the full blender because, I don't know, I guess I'm lazy. So inside of the cup so far I have the reserved garlic clove and a pinch of oregano, which probably would amount to about 1/2 teaspoon. And again, the person who I've learned how to cook these things from measures things in very bizarre amounts. So these are slices of onion. So I'm going to do what would be like an equivalent to 1 slice all the way around of a whole onion. Throw that in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the 2 tomatoes and the chile to it, and a little bit of the water from boiling it, and then run it on the blender for about 2 minutes. Alright y'all, so we are finally boiling over here on our caldo. I'm going to go ahead, like I said, and toss in the celery. I sound a little stupid because like I'm telling you these directions, but like my recipe for this is in Spanish, so it's like I want to be saying the ingredients in Spanish, even though English is my first language, obviously. So it's like, it's bizarre. I feel like I'm translating them in my head, even though English is my first language. I went ahead and tossed in the celery, like I said, and then I dumped out, that is really sputtering, the water out of the pot that I boiled the tomatoes in, and clearly didn't get all of the water out. So I went ahead and I put some olive oil in there. You can use whatever kind you want. And I'm actually going to take it off the heat for a second. I should probably look at what I'm doing. Take it off the heat for a second, and I'm going to dump in this tomato salsa, and this is going to spat and sputter everywhere, and that's actually why I covered my cooktop with foil like a dork, because I'm just super weird about cleanliness. So go ahead and pour in a little bit and let it sputter, and then pour in the rest. And if we didn't take that off the heat, like I'm telling you, it would be on your shirt, all over. So please heed my warning and take it off the heat. We'll go ahead and we'll turn it back on. Put it on medium heat, and we're going to bring this to a boil. And I honestly can't tell you what the point of this is. I've seen it in multiple recipes, Hispanic recipes, Mexican recipes. But I'm assuming what the point is that this salsa is technically still raw, even though we have cooked the tomatoes and the chiles, because we did put raw garlic and raw onion in there. So we're going to put it to fry. That's what they call. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to simmer this salsa for a little bit longer until the color deepens to more of a darker red and the flavor intensifies. And then the rest of the deal with the caldo is like you've got to kind of look at your veggies and what size you've cut them up into, and just do it with common sense. I mean, if you have big old pieces of carrot, you know, I mean, larger than this, like toss them in now. If you have a whole piece of corn, toss them in, you know, first. So I'm just going to continue to let this boil, like I said, for 10 minutes, because for large chicken breasts, bone in, skin on, they need to cook for about 30 minutes. So with this boiling for 10, that'll give me about 20 minutes for the rest of these veggies to stagger in. So I'll be back in a moment after I finished letting this salsa fry, and when we can start adding some more of the veggies. And I have to apologize. I'm definitely a little bit scatterbrained while I'm making this video, so I'm sorry if I'm not sounding too organized today.
During busy days, it's important to take a break.
All right, I have just added most of my veggies to my broth, which would be everything except for the zucchini and the cabbage. I'm going to go ahead and put this on like super duper duper high, as you can see, and bring it up to a rolling boil again. And then this has got to go for about another 20 minutes to make sure that the chicken is cooked. I'm also going to toss in our epazote and our cilantro. These are just washed and they're whole. As I'd mentioned before, we're going to pull them out, so you can just toss them on the top like that and then kind of pat them down. Sorry, it's easier to film with the camera vertically. I'm like learning how to do this whole wide angle action BS. And then in the meantime, the salsa is still boiling. It's just about done. It's reduced quite a bit. And then I forgot to mention that this is served with arroz rojo. So I'm going to start preparing the ingredients to make a quick, that Hispanic Mexican red rice. So for me, I just use 2 tomatoes. I'll use a piece of this onion. I'll get out some mixed frozen veggies, and I can make a separate video on that on a different day, because this was like, I totally forgot it. And then I'm also starting to chop up the things that you serve the soup with, and actually you're going to put fresh vegetables, non-cooked, on top of the soup, which is like onions, some cilantro. We'll do chile serrano. We'll also serve it with fresh lime juice. So I'm just getting the accoutrements finished for the rest of the soup. And I think we're about ready to actually add in this chile. So as soon as this comes to a boil, we'll go ahead and pop that in there, and we'll let this go for 20 minutes. And I'll be back when we start removing the rest of these aromatics. Just checking in with you guys. As you can see, I've added the salsa to the pot. I know it's a little bit hard to see because it's so steamy, but the broth is now slightly reddish. I would say it still looks like normal chicken stock, but I mean, it's definitely got a deeper, richer color than it did before. Just guessing by my own personal judgment, I'm gonna add the repollo, the cabbage, to the pot, because this is a huge chunk. I was not super smart when I was buying this morning. I didn't realize that there was no stem end on this head of cabbage, so I'm really nervous that this is going to break apart after it's been boiling in there, and I'm not a huge cabbage fan, so not too happy about that. So if you are going to make this and you're shopping for your cabbage, make sure it's got a stem end, and just like we did with the onion, leave that intact so that way it stays together. So I'm going to plop this in here, and I won't be back until it's time to remove these aromatics and dump in this zucchini, because the rest of it is really just eyeballing it and making sure that your veggies and your chicken are cooked. So I don't think you need me to be redundant and keep repeating myself. So I have commenced the final step, if you will. I went ahead and I removed, I couldn't find the onion in there, believe it or not, and I couldn't find 1 clove of garlic. So I just removed all the epazote and the cilantro from there, and obviously 1 garlic clove. I didn't want to keep digging around in there because the carrots and the potatoes are super tender. I mean, they're like butter. So the more I mix it, I don't want to smush up the potatoes or the carrots and make a cloudy broth. So as I serve, I'll just look for those other pieces. So I've dumped these calabacitas in there, these zucchinis in here. I'm just going to kind of punch them down and recover it. And then it's at a nice simmer now. We don't need to have it at a rolling boil at all because the soup is cooked and it's just about done. So I'm going to cover it and then finish chopping up the rest of my stuff. So I've got these all finished up. I'll get some limes diced up, heat up some tortillas, and then we will serve our dish. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have finished serving and plating. This is our finished caldo. Let me wipe my camera because I'm pretty sure it's dirty. There we go. This is our finished caldo. It has all of the veggies. I try to make sure that there's a bit of everything in the bowl. And my husband, Daniel, who is a real live official Mexican,
really good,
is going to taste test it for us. It probably needs salt because I always forget salt. And he's going to show us how you serve it. So this is our arroz rojo that I made. Some people put it inside your soup. I'm not sure if he's going to do that. But he's going to go ahead and put all of his toppings on. So he's putting some minced onion, some cilantro. I should probably show his face, right?
Hi guys.
Some chopped up serrano chiles.
And some rice.
And he's going to put his rice in there. And I'm going to get a close-up of your food. I have it on this gross pot holder because this table gets those white marks from heat on it. And that bowl is like super duper hot. So this is what the finished product looks like. And now for a taste test. A squeeze of fresh lime. Cannot forget the fresh lime. It's how you know when a real Mexican. When you squeeze the lime until it looks murdered. There's salt right next to you.
Looks so good. Delicioso, delicious. Really good.
So we have...
The chili is spicy.
Yeah, my fingers are still burning. I made the mistake of touching my nose after cutting it up.
You shouldn't put that much.
Alright, and then this is what my bowl looks like. I don't know if this ever happens to any of you, but sometimes I cook something and I spend so long cooking it that I don't even get hungry afterwards. So I'm a dork and I just have like 2 little chunks of breast meat, a couple potatoes, and some carrots. And that'll be it. So I hope you guys liked this video. Again, I was super tired and I know it was a little bit disorganized, but I hope you'd enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask in the comments. This is just a simple, rustic, hearty chicken stew. So have a great night, everyone. Say bye, Daniel.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.